Welcome to episode 11 of the Sensitive Soul Support Podcast. Happy Friday, Jen.
Happy Friday. I'm so happy to be here.
Me too.
It's been a hot minute.
Yeah. So we are actually live today. We're doing this on our YouTube channel. So let's let our listeners know that should they want to listen to us, they can still do that. But now we're also going to be on our YouTube channel recording these episodes. So anyone listening who wants to watch us on the YouTube channel, what is that called?
Sensitive Soul Support Podcast. Just search us on YouTube for that. So,
yeah.
So you can see our faces.
Yay. You get to see us. So I wanted to do a little bit of a link today from our last episode where we talked about the difference between being a physical empath and an emotional empath. I just wanted to bridge that episode to this one really quickly. And then our topic for today will be learning how not to fix if you are an emotional empath, and just kind of unpacking all of that and what it means when you're an emotional empath and you are feeling the pain or suffering of others, the patterns that we're in, and how do we stop the patterns of fixing and overextending. So we're going to kind of talk about that. So the first part of today, again, and I get to show it to you now because I do a lot of pulling from this book, The Empath Survival Guide. But last episode, I had even heard from some people in my Facebook group who listened to that episode. A lot of the people who listened identified as emotional empaths. I don't think many identified as the physical empath, but I do know some of them, which is really interesting. They literally can feel other people's, pain in their body. I have a friend who's a nurse and she can feel other people's symptoms in her body. So she has to really be careful with her work. But most people identified who spoke up that they were emotional empaths, and why it was so important to distinguish which one you are. And maybe you're both, but if you are that emotional empath, you are prone to empathic illnesses, or you're vulnerable. Maybe not prone, but you're more vulnerable to empathic illnesses. So this is just a little follow-up on why it is important for you to know this. So empaths are prone to social anxiety because they're overwhelmed by the multiple spoken and unspoken signals people give off in groups. Empaths are also sensitive to rejection. These individuals become so exhausted and burned out from feeling the world's stress that they can't function, which is the adrenal fatigue, which I'm going to talk about. And then it says, because conventional medicine does not believe in the existence of the body's subtle energy system, most doctors have no context for understanding what's going on with empaths or how to relieve their suffering. So the list of empathic related illnesses are adrenal fatigue, autoimmune diseases such as Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is what I have, and inflammatory bowel disease, agoraphobia, which is the fear of going outside, many different phobias like of crowds, driving, large stadium events, and so on, chronic depression, chronic fatigue, which I think is really common for a lot of the emotional empaths that I know and work with, fibromyalgia, pain, and panic attacks and social anxiety.
I think I'd probably like to add migraines to that list too, because I know a lot of empaths that suffer from chronic migraines.
Migraines. Yeah. And so it's really important to empower yourself if you're an emotional empath, because you may already be experiencing some of these things, or you may not know why. Maybe you don't know why. Maybe you haven't found that magical pill out there, or maybe you try different things to help with the fatigue and the pain and the migraines, and you haven't found any answers. This might be one of the reasons why it's so important for you, if you are identifying as that emotional empath, to really learn how to protect and empower yourself. So it's very real. Like, this is very real. we're so passionate about this. I'm so passionate about this because the backdrop of all this work is health. For me, at least, it's like being in good health. This is a whole element of a person's health and wellness that they may have no idea is even affecting them. So that's why we are trying to educate and support the small population, the only 20% of people in this world who do identify as the empath or highly sensitive person, because there's not a whole lot out there to support them.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to a lot of those. But you know what's interesting? I feel like depending on where my mental health is, like I can go through stages where if my mental health's not good and I'm feeling anxiety and depression, that like I can't be in crowded places where I literally feel physically ill. But if I'm grounded and my mental health feels good and stable, crowds don't bother me at all. So I think that this is kind of like a spectrum, you know, depending on how grounded you are, on how it affects you.
Yeah. So let's kind of think and talk through specifically, because that's a lot. There's a lot to unpack there too, like mental health and being grounded and what that all means. Because that's different for everyone. I think of the grounded part as like energy management. Like that's always what like how am I managing my energy? And that is mental and it is energetic and it is physical. There's a lot of unpacking to do there, like exactly what you're saying. So let's hone in today on a very popular topic for many empaths, especially the emotional empaths, which is, I always giggle, one of my clients, she named it being the Red Cross mommy, like the part of us as women and men who are ready, always ready to rescue and ready to fix and ready to heal the people in their lives that are suffering, that are in pain, that need help, that need whatever. So we're going to talk about that today. So why don't we start with maybe Jenn, share a little bit about your tendency or the part of you that is a fixer or a healer or wants to rescue, like without like just who is that part of you, and have you done any kind of like feeling into who is she and like when does she come out? When is she around the most? What does it feel like when you're in that part of yourself? Because that's not who you are. It's a big part of a lot of emotional empaths, but it's not you. So that part of you, like, tell us about her. Like, when did you discover her? What is your life like when you're in that mode, when she's kind of taking the driving wheel and she's steering the car? Tell us a little bit about your experience having that part of you.
I think she definitely emerged as a child when it would come to dynamics with my mother, you know, wanting to fix when she was in discomfort or visibly upset or angry. I always wanted to fix it, you know? So it's kind of like a bit of a conditioning of a family dynamic that you just get into, that you want to help your mom feel better, right? And then obviously, if that's just the dynamic and you're used to that through your life, when you become a mother, it really shows up. So as a mother, that's where it shows up the most. Absolutely. I have a very difficult time detaching from that part of myself when my kids are struggling. So I think not only being aware of when I'm doing it, which has been a journey in itself, learning how to work through it has been extremely valuable for me. And it is a daily practice. It's not something I've mastered. I don't know that I ever will, but when my kids are struggling, I immediately go to fix it for you. I want to heal you. I want to make you feel better because I feel their pain. And it's really uncomfortable for me too. It's so hard to see someone you love so deeply not feeling well, and you just want to fix it and help them. But sometimes that's not what they need. Sometimes they need just our unconditional love and our acceptance, to allow them to learn how to process and move through their own challenges and their own struggles. So I think for me, it's like learning that balance of advocating and supporting and loving and accepting, but also sitting in those uncomfortable feelings of, I can't fix this and I just have to be patient and let it run its course as I am loving them, as I'm supporting them, as I'm holding space for them. And when I hold space for them, I have to be willing to sit in uncomfortable feelings sometimes and not just swoop in and just, my daughter Autumn just said to me the other day, Mom, I think a really great thing for us would be when I come to you and I need you to hold space for me, you say to me, would you like my feedback or would you like my comfort? And I was like, that is amazing wisdom and advice. And I really appreciated that. So I think we can all learn from that, right? Whenever somebody that we love comes to us in pain or not feeling well, asking, do you want my feedback or do you want my comfort? So I feel like that's a good step.
Wow. Yeah. Holy cow. Okay. So that was like a lot. I'm just taking in everything that you just shared. Yeah. And what I'm interested in, because I think this is a really good inquiry for all of us to do, all of us empaths to do, is when, like, how can we get better at noticing when we are in Red Cross mommy mode? What does our body feel like? What do we notice happens in our body when that Red Cross mommy like is coming out? What do we notice about the way we're reacting, the way we're talking, the way we're moving about our environment? Like, I think becoming more aware of our bodies to be able to recognize, oh, I'm shifting into that Red Cross mommy mode, the fixer mode, the healer, the helper, whatever. I have to just react and fix. I think because what I find, Jenn, is that when my Red Cross mommy comes out, it's often I'm already in that mode. And now I have to walk the cat back and I have to pull myself out of it because I'm already in it. And I'm like, oh, wait, this is, so my where I am on my journey is trying to identify sooner the triggers and the signs and the warnings, so I don't go into full blown, let me fix it now. So for me, it feels like an emergency. Like I start to feel a sense of panic inside, and there's an automatic, I stop the presence that I'm in, whatever presence I'm in, it's like that goes away and this urgency feeling comes up inside of me. So like if I'm washing the dishes or something, or I'm at my computer working and I start to hear the problem down there in the other part of the house, I stop right away. I shut the screen and I'm already running to see what's going on and what can I do to help here? If I'm washing the dishes, it's like I drop the sponge and it's like my body reacts as though it's an emergency. So for me, knowing that when I'm doing something and then I find myself having stopped it, and I'm not talking about like if a kid is like broken their leg, of course you're going to run. This is just like the kids are arguing,
fighting or right
going on. And I feel like I have to run and fix it because there's a signal inside of my brain that cannot tolerate very well any type of unrest, dispute, negative energy, fight, disturbance, right? Because I crave peace. My energy system craves peace and stillness and quiet. So when those triggers start, and for me, it's fighting, the kids fighting. For me, it's, God forbid someone stubs a toe. It's like, I'm running. Are you okay? What can I do to, like, my kids are 11 and 10. Like, I don't need to be running anymore. It's like ridiculous. But so if anyone gets hurt, no matter what it is, And if anyone is arguing or fighting, I find for me, I stop what I'm doing really quickly and I'm like ready to run. And so I want to get better at identifying what that feels like in my body. And it happens so quickly. It's so fast that you go into that. I got to help. I got to heal. I got to fix it. Which leads to the chronic fatigue, which leads to anxiety, which leads to all of these vulnerable empathic illnesses that are waiting for us if we don't get a handle on our tendencies to fix and help. So what does it feel like for you? Do you have a similar experience? Like when your Red Cross mommy comes running, like jumping out, like what does it feel like for you? What do you notice about it when it before it happens or after it's already happened and you look back on it?
To be honest, I think sometimes I go the opposite way where I just shut down and avoid it altogether.
Yeah.
I'm like one or the other, right? Where I'm like, I have to swoop in and fix and I get all anxious and like it's like a jolt of energy that's just like tense inside of me. And I feel like I have to fix it, or I just shut it down and disassociate. And I just avoid because I'm so exhausted that that's my self-preservation. It's like, okay, I can either choose to disassociate and avoid so that I can protect my energy and myself, or I can swoop in and try to fix. So I guess that's where the work is like finding this balance where it's like neither of those is healthy, right? Like we have to find a balance where we know when to detach and allow it to run its course and when to, slowly come and intervene. And I know I'm getting much better at verbalizing it with my kids. Like even Griffin, he's my 6-year-old. I will say to him, like, I'm losing patience right now.
Yeah.
And sometimes he will be like, I'm sorry you're losing patience, mommy, but you need to deal with this. Take a deep breath.
I love him. And the I'm losing patience is not just a cue to the other person, right? It's a cue to yourself. Like,
yes,
it's telling yourself, okay, I'm going to go into that. And I want to talk a little bit about trauma response because it's so important to understand trauma response. Now, I'm going to go out on a big limb here and say that I think a lot of empaths have a differently wired nervous system, like a highly sensitive person does, because like you said, they've been conditioned from their days as a child to have to compensate and to survive certain situations for it to be more survivable. They had to have these coping mechanisms of too much energy, taking action, fighting back at the person who's causing the unrest, or fleeing the situation, or going. So that's the sympathetic. So I'm in a class now. I know I told you, I'm telling listeners, I'm taking this wonderful class on somatic embodiment and regulation strategies. And we're learning all about the autonomic nervous system. So what you said before is really interesting because we could go into the too much energy mode, which is sympathetic. That's too much energy. That's fight or flight. Or we could go into the dorsal energy, which is down low, which is too little energy. It's kind of like that flop. I give up. There's nothing I can do here. Why even bother? So I'm learning that for some of us who've had trauma, we might be the fight or flight, too much energy, we run into action. That's me. Or we might be we go into dorsal energy, which is shut down, disconnect, disassociate. And some of us ricochet between both.
That's me.
We go, and then we crash. Go, crash. So there's all kinds of, that's a spectrum too. And so for those of us who are like exploring all this, I want to just say, like, there's a reason why you have this tendency to heal, to help, to fix. Yes, as empaths, we have these compassionate, giant, beautiful hearts. That's our superpower. We care, we connect, we feel other people. That's the beautiful thing about us. But we also can learn a lot about our own trauma responses so that we can try and find a place where we can regulate more and more and not find ourselves going into that sympathetic or into that dorsal, too much energy or too little energy, but staying in optimal energy. And so this is another thing that we've been talking about, just you and I back and forth day to day, is learning how to what we call, what Linda Tai, the one who's doing the class, calls the window of capacity. We're stretching our window of capacity for discomfort when we let the fight happen down the hall and we don't jump in to solve the problem. That's a place for empaths to stretch and grow and to expand that window of capacity, to stay in the fire, to stay in where it feels hot and tense without reacting.
It's like a muscle you have to build over time. Absolutely.
Yes. And so we were saying, like, you shared a very personal story, which you don't need to share here, but like, what do we say in our heads to ourselves? How do we coach ourselves? What kind of self-talk should be happening when we're in that window of, this feels so uncomfortable right now, and my instinct is to come in and solve the situation? What do we say to ourselves? What kind of self-talk is helpful for us when we're in that window and we can catch it and we start to feel our body getting hot? We start to feel the emergency whistles going off. We start to get tense, like you were saying. And we're working on staying in that window of, I can live with, I can be in this window of it feeling uncomfortable. I don't have to jump in. What do we say to ourselves? We were going to talk about a little bit of self-talk today and compassion for ourselves and all that stuff. So how do we, when we find ourselves there, I'm like, I just got to take a deep breath. For me, it's like, breathe, Stacey, breathe. So, and I'm breathing, but I'm still hearing that argument down there, right? So it's still really awful because I'm trying to calm my nervous system, but I still hear it. So maybe now I need, the breathing's not really working. It's keeping me in my chair. I'm not running, but what else can I be doing in that moment? Some self-talk, picturing a bubble around myself, imagining that I'm safe, telling myself they're going to be okay. It's safe. It's safe. They're going to be okay. So what do we do when we're in that window before we run and react? And then we've taken over.
That's the gold. It really is. That's the gold. And that is the practice. Like every day you have to show up and practice that in order to build that muscle. And you're going to have slips. You're going to have days where you go to the dark and you have to be able to be like, no, this is not working. I don't want to be here. I got to pull myself out. You know, I always say you got to befriend yourself. You got to be your own cheerleader.
Yes.
So yeah, I think yoga has definitely helped me a lot with that too.
How so? Tell me about that.
It helps me be present in my body. So like you said, breath work is huge, but like even just like connecting with my body and like saying, you're safe. It's okay. Like loving my body exactly where it is, no matter what state, weight, whatever, like this is my vessel. I'm allowed to love you and feel safe in you no matter what shape form you are in.
And does yoga help you catch yourself when you're going into high, your heart rate's increasing, when you're going into that, I'm about to be Red Cross mommy? Does yoga create,
I think it helps me become more present. Yes.
So you can tune into your body. So you can tune in to what's happening.
Even though I'm not practicing it in those times, so to speak, practicing it regularly connects me to my body and my breath in a way that I am able to access that peace, that calm, that breath when I need it.
And not to get into more trauma stuff, but I'm like obsessed with studying trauma. But one of the other classes I took with Bessel van der Kolk, I told you this, that he talks all the time. He always is studying ways to help regulate the nervous system for people who are trauma survivors, right? And yoga is one of the things he said, over and over and over and over and over, because we can't expect ourselves, if we've never practiced, like you said, and through a yoga practice, if we've never practiced being in our body before with awareness, without distractions, but like literally, and I do yoga like 1 hour a week, and it's so amazing. I'm still waiting for that. Like, yeah, I really can now connect, really getting good at identifying when my body's starting to go into, I'm going to react now when I don't need to. I'm still waiting for that. I guess I don't practice it often enough, but I do it once a week. And
Mhm.
I just feel like, and I've been doing it for years, I feel like, oh my God, I'd be so much worse off had I not. So I think yoga practice is
Absolutely.
such a wonderful way for empaths to increase like their understanding of what their body feels like in any given moment, so they can move more towards empowering themselves to not do certain things that are going to give them fatigue or burn them out or make them feel depressed, which is Red Cross momming is one of those things, because you often don't get, I think, the result you really wanted. You just get burnt out and people get mad at you when you jump in and you shouldn't have. So like it creates even more stress in a lot of situations, or it can create just a false sense of safety for us. Like, great, I went in, I solved that problem. And it gives us this false sense of control. Like we're always
Mhm.
looking for those ways to control, you know? So
Absolutely.
yoga is such a great practice for empaths who are trying to be able to identify, how do I know when my body is going into that place? How do I catch it before it happens? Or how do I at least become aware of it while it's happening? How can I connect to it and know, oh, my heart rate's increasing and I'm breathing faster and I'm getting hot in my body. I feel constricted and I'm ready to put out a fire. My muscles are tensing. Oh my God, I'm going into that fight. I'm going into fight or flight. I'm ready to beat that, run the tiger, right? Like it's really important to know what it feels like in your own body. And how do you know that unless you're forcing yourself to sit for an hour and being with your body? So yoga is
Exactly.
so encouraged if you're an empath and you're not already doing yoga. But Jenn, because you're a yoga teacher, I want to ask you this, because this is something that I hear a lot of my clients tell me. And this was my experience before I found the right class and the right teacher. I've tried a lot of yoga classes, and a lot of my clients hate yoga because I think they've gone to the wrong type of yoga. So can you give us like a little non sequitur here, like a couple of like recommendations for what type of yoga is the one that helps us really get present in our body? Because there's like hot yoga and cardio yoga and speed yoga and vinyasa. It's like, if you don't know about yoga, you're just going to get sucked into a yoga class. It might be the totally wrong one. And then you'd be like, why is this helpful? Right. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about the yoga part of it. Like, what yoga do you recommend?
So personally, I practice vinyasa. That's what I am trained in, and that's what I teach, right? And the beauty in vinyasa is it really gets you moving energy. It's a little more high energy, right? So you're moving energy through your body, right? Yin yoga is also excellent because it makes you sit in poses for 3 to 5 minutes and really ease in and learn how to talk yourself into, I'm not going to die. I'm uncomfortable, but this is where the growth lies. I have to learn how to sit with the discomfort of being in a pose for 3 to 5 minutes. And then when I come out of it, I feel amazing, right? So it's like
Jenn, there's a
teaching your
surrender.
brain.
When I do yin,
Yes.
it's like 2 minutes in child's pose and I'm getting itchy, and then I feel the surrender, right? There's a surrender piece to yin that I feel like
Yes.
relates so much to what we're talking
That's what
about.
I'm gonna get certified in that next. But yin is honestly, that was the first thing that changed my life when I was very, very depressed. It helped me
Mm.
reconnect with those self-talk and build my confidence, right? But with
Yeah.
vinyasa, it's all over the place. It really is dependent upon your teacher. And personally, I don't like a teacher that is constantly talking about the physical aspect and walking around and monitoring how everybody's posed and touching them and telling them where to go. I do not like that at
I
all.
hate that. I had that a few times. I hate it.
I'm very much like, unless you're going to hurt yourself, I'm not going to say a word to you. I'm not going to touch you. As long as you're moving and you're connecting with your breath and your body, you're doing it right, right? I also like a lot of quiet when I practice. I'm a quiet teacher because I feel like I want you to connect with yourself in that time. I don't want to be distracting you from that. So yes, I'm going to guide you into your poses. Yes, there's going to be, in the beginning of our practice, I always do affirmations. There's always something that we're focused on. I always share an inspiring quote at the end. So there's always that inspiration, and that, you know, it's mental and it is connected to our nervous systems. So that's the type of teacher I am, because that's what I relate to, right? And
we're
I think
supposed to be looking for those teachers, the ones that are like kind of quiet, not go, and they're correcting every move. So if you're in that kind of a yoga class, that might not be the right, and maybe you like that for other reasons, but it's not the kind of yoga that will help you to connect deeply
or
with
calm
your
your
body
nervous system.
or calm your
Totally.
nervous system.
Right. It's gonna
So
move
vinyasa,
energy, but
yin, those are like the two yogas that would be like really good
I know
for
Kundalini,
practicing.
I've heard really great things about too. I've personally never practiced it though.
I've practiced Kundalini a few times and it's pretty intense. So I would think that that's for people who are
More
like,
advanced.
yeah,
Okay.
more advanced and have like some mastery over their nervous system already. It's a lot of, I found it to be very intense, but that could be something, sure, for people to try. I think that's
And I
more
just
for,
want to say that, like, a lot of people don't like yoga because they don't like getting quiet with themselves. It's not a comfortable place to be if you're really hard on yourself, if you're not speaking kindly to yourself, right? So that's why I say you need it even more, because it's like this wake-up call. It's, wow, no wonder I feel exhausted all the time if I'm beating myself down this way. Or no wonder I'm talking to my kids this way if I'm talking to myself this way. It's a time for you to really get real and honest with yourself about the way you connect with yourself. And that can be really uncomfortable and can be really alarming and disturbing if you're in a bad space. And that's why you don't want to do it, because you want to avoid feeling that way. But I promise you, if you stick with it and you just show up once a week, it's a slow healing process. It's a slow building of that muscle, of learning how to sit with uncomfortable feelings, of reframing that dialogue, of changing that inner narrative. It's so powerful, and it ripples out into every single aspect of your life.
so I think one of the last things we should maybe address before we leave for today is coming back to the self-talk. So if you get to that place where you're practicing some yoga and now you're kind of in that, oh, I feel it happening. It's a fight or flight's coming. I feel it happening, or I'm going to flop soon. Like I could feel my body's response right now. I'm ready to fix and I don't want to. You're at that place of awareness. Again, like what are the things to say to yourself, the self-talk. So you and I both said like the word safety, safe.
Mhm.
So I think that's very empowering when you're in that window to just say, I'm safe now. I don't have to run and solve my kids' fight, because what happens a lot for us is we're being re-traumatized. There's a trigger that sends us back into a very old trauma from childhood, from teenage, whatever, where we had to jump in and be the one to stop the fight because something really bad would have happened if we didn't.
Mhm.
Either we would have had to feel someone's really awful feelings, or someone may have even been physically abused or verbally abused. So this part of us that goes into the fight or flight, the compassion piece is so big there, because this part of you, the Red Cross mommy, she still feels a little bit unsafe. She feels unsafe. So she needs to know that this is a different situation. Nothing really bad's actually going to happen. In the moment, we can't really, she's off, like we're offline in that moment. Like a part of our brain is offline, the prefrontal cortex goes offline in there. So we can't really be reasonable in that moment, but we can soothe ourselves and just say, you're safe. You're safe now. You don't have to run and help. You're safe. So I think that word that actually might be a triggering word for some people, but you could play with that, or you could just say, it's going to be okay. Like, it's not an emergency. It's not an emergency. This is not an emergency. That might be a little catchphrase. And you can even put like a little post-it note on your wall that says, this is not an emergency. When you feel yourself going into that place, heart starts racing, look at your post-it. Oh, there's that reminder. It's not an emergency, which can then help you take a deeper breath and just feel like, okay, maybe you can allow yourself not to go to that where you're in too much energy or too little energy. So I'm safe. This is not an emergency. Everything's going to be okay. And it's like soothing or comforting Red Cross mommy, whose job it was for a long time to have to solve the problem, because if she didn't, something really bad might have happened.
Yeah, and I think even waking up your senses in some way is valuable in those spaces as well. Like, you know, having essential oils to smell, or lighting a candle, or you know, getting outside and allowing your eyes to be dazzled by the colors in nature. Like, something to awaken your senses helps calm you down as well and kind of snap you out of all of that. I know that's why nature is such a huge tool with me. I have to go out and walk in nature, and that helps me speak kinder to myself.
You reminded me of a tool to use for anxiety. I think it's the 4-3-2-1. And
Mel Robbins.
The 4-3-2-1. I don't know where I heard it from.
5 seconds.
That's a therapist. Okay. Yeah. So when you're in that state and you're going to react, just, okay, what are 4 things I can see right now? I see my feather lamp. I see my paper. I see this crystal. I see my water bottle. What are 3 things that you can touch right now? Oh, I can touch my book. And then you touch it. I feel the floor. I feel this carnelian stone, right? And then what are 2 things you can smell right now? Oh, I can smell my candle. I can smell, I don't know, my blanket. And then what's 1 thing that I guess, or hear, but it's with the senses. So the 4-3-2-1 is like a quick go-to. So if you find yourself like, oh, I'm getting worked up, 4-3-2-1, quick, like try the 4-3-2-1 to ground you. Like you were saying, senses, being with your senses, it grounds you in your body. So that's a really good list of tools, right? So we said yoga, really comforting, compassionate self-talk, the 4-3-2-1, getting in nature, going outside, looking at the colors, like you said, feeling the air on your skin. And then, yeah, it's like you said, I agree. Like I've nowhere mastered it, but there are many more times now that I find myself not running to the rescue where I would have always just run to the rescue in the past. So it is a process of, strengthening your awareness, and I guess, really learning how to calm yourself, how to regulate in the ways that work best for you. And that's kind of like the fun experimentation you get to do, is find the ways that work best for you.
Yeah, it's definitely a personal journey.
Yeah. And I guess the last little bit is, when you do find yourself, or when I do find myself, Red Cross mommy just came in and did the thing, and I didn't want her to, we don't beat ourselves up. We don't get down on ourselves. We don't start, why did you do that? You know better. You should. None of that is helpful. So I have to say, I'm really good at that. I've come a very long way with that. It's just like, okay, I did it. I get you, Red Cross mommy. I love you. I see you. I know you were just doing what you thought you needed to protect yourself and to survive. Sending you kisses, soothe myself, hug myself. It's okay. It's okay that you did it. It's no big deal. You'll do better next time, right? Like the grace and the compassion.
Absolutely. Because that's the only way we're going to make any progress. I mean, you can really get stuck in it if you just beat yourself up for what you did. And then when you're able to, and I have to say, it's so incredibly true. What you're able to do for yourself, you're able to extend to others so much easier. So if you're really hard on yourself and you're always beating down on yourself, that's the way that you can respond to others. That judgment, that, you know, wanting to control it, where when you're able to just own what you did and forgive yourself and give yourself grace, you're able to do that for everyone around you so much easier, which makes life a lot more pleasant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's a beautiful way of modeling for our kids.
Absolutely.
Those of us who are parents, you know, the way we want our kids to function in the world too, same way. Yeah, beautiful. So, any last thoughts or bits that you want to share before we say goodbye?
I think we covered a lot. This was a really great episode. I mean, even if you're not an empath, I feel like you could gain something from this episode. But being an empath, I can't relate to that life experience, right?
Yeah. And sharing some of this with your family members too, who are also highly sensitive and empaths, that can be really helpful.
Absolutely.
And maybe now you're gonna say, okay, kids, we're doing a yoga class every Sunday if you have 2 empath kids too, you know, so take any of this and use it and share it with those that you love too. All right, my love. I hope you
Yay.
have a lovely weekend.
You too.
And I can't wait to see you again.
Yes. Thanks for joining, friends.
Bye, everyone who's listening and watching us on our YouTube channel. Feel free to like this episode and subscribe to the channel if you would like to see us do the podcast again.
All right. Till next time.
Bye.